It is 6 o'clock, and the City Council is in session, and we will begin with an invocation by George Baroody.
Okay, stand if you wish. Dear Lord, thank you for another wonderful day in a beautiful city. Please remind us, as always, that you're the vine. If we just stay connected to you, we can follow in what you're asking us to do. Help us to understand what that is and just to take in the nutrients and the leadership from you in all that we do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Chief Knight's going to do the pledge.
Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Announcements of community interest.
Yes, sir. Welcome to everybody tonight. We have a smaller group than we've had in the last few weeks. We've got just a couple of announcements and we'll get started. I get that it's the first one up right now. Mr. Mayor, you're a car fan, aren't you?
I am.
I thought so. You'll like this first thing that we have. The Kerrville River Cruise is September 15th in Louise Hayes Park. Now, this is the first time that we've had a car show down at Louise Hayes Park. And we're really looking forward to it. It's a free event. It's come and go all day long. We're going to have cars of all sizes and colors. And so I would encourage everybody to drop by because I think it's going to be a really fun event. We're going to have live music. We're going to have, I believe, food trucks. Are we having food trucks there? Yes. So I know Mr. Hoppe will make happy.
Yes.
All right. So keep that on your calendar. That's 4 o'clock Saturday, September 15th. All right, next we've got a couple of events coming up. Now both of these are still a little ways off, but we're going ahead and starting to take applications for them because they've been so popular. The first one is Family Fright Night. We're starting to take applications for that. It actually occurs, of course, on October 31st, Halloween night. It's in Louise Hayes Park. It's free to the community and includes games, trick-or-treating, food trucks again, a costume contest, bounce houses, and more. Now, last year we had over 3,000 people at this event, 3,000 trick-or-treaters. So it's very popular. If you want a packet to become a booth or to open a booth or be a sponsor or for information on parking your food truck at Family Fright Night, contact the Parks and Recreation Department. Again, over 3,000 people last year, so it's a great chance to see a lot of people and have a lot of fun. Also, having a lot of fun is the Holiday Lighting Parade, and that's going to be on November 17th. We're taking applications right now for
Floats.
Floats. Thank you very much. It's in downtown Kerrville. I know everybody's been to it before. It's a lot of fun every year as well. It's an annual tradition. And of course, Santa Claus shows up and kicks off the start of our holiday season. Entry fee is $20. We are looking to get most of our entry forms and payments in by Friday, November 2nd. After that, there's a late registration for about 5 days, and it jumps to $35. But the entries are limited to the first 100. So the sooner you reserve, the better. And thank you again for a little help there.
Anytime I could, it just came right out.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Stuart, let me add one more.
Sure.
And that is October the 2nd is National Night Out. Chief Knight and those who are working with him will be getting the word out about that. But it's a great opportunity for neighbors to meet neighbors and so forth.
Absolutely. And we'll have more about that as we go forward in council meetings.
All right. Okay.
Thank you very much.
I got a couple also. So last time I asked about this and this Pocket Monkey project that we're not really sure about what it is, but thanks to some citizens who have been reporting on this movement, I'm not really at liberty to disclose much about it, but I can confirm that the initial reports seem pretty promising for the area. Also, I guess I asked about it last time. We got a little bit of movement on, not a lot, but we got a little bit of movement on some information about Tybee Mountain ownership. So hopefully we'll still keep moving forward with that. And if I'm not mistaken, part of the reason she may not be here is Thursday the Waller's anniversary. Does anybody know that for sure?
Yeah, 50 years.
The 50th anniversary. So that's an announcement worth announcing. Huh, is that where they are? They didn't invite us or nothing? Oh, well.
They're not Skyping it all.
Yeah,
over.
no, not at all.
Yeah.
And then also just one last thing, a little bit of a status update. I assume we'll get one a little bit later, but on animal control services, at the urging of some local citizen group, which some are here today, Hill Country Animal Advocates, and a couple of us on council, in spite of a somewhat perplexing vote last meeting, we voted against continuing to negotiate. Some progress has been made on that. Yesterday, as I understand it, the county kind of approved creating an animal advisory board, and a solution to synchronize our conflicting codes is kind of in the works. So that's all I really have.
Since you've mentioned it a couple of times, what is Pocket Monkey?
That I don't know. That's why I said last time I asked, because I'm hearing about it. I don't really know for sure what it is, and it's just something I'm told is called Pocket Monkey Project. I was hearing about it, and so I put out that call kind of to people to kind of let me know if they hear about it. And I was told that it had something to do with some kind of economic thing, but I honestly don't know that for sure.
Okay, all right. Okay, visitors and citizens
Mayor,
forum.
I had something I'd requested to speak, if you don't mind.
Okay,
Dove season opens this weekend. I encourage everybody to go out and have fun and be safe. And also, I've been wanting to do this for a few years, bringing a large music event to Kerrville, and I've been working with the city manager and Ashley at Parks. Hopefully, we can have something by next October. But it'd be a variety of music, variety of food, and a variety of events, such as you can rent zip lines, have a mechanical bull, a Ferris wheel, something downtown in our park. We just made all the improvements, so I'd like to utilize that, and we're working on it.
all right, okay.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may add, I think a big thanks to, do I need to push the button?
That's all right, go ahead.
Okay. No, a big thanks to the Callow Theater for bringing in, we're talking about musical groups there. Lori Morgan was here last Friday night and filled the house. It was great.
Good, good, sure, all right. Okay, we have two folks lined up to speak, Denise Smith and Dale Trees. Denise?
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
I'm Denise Smith. Do I have to turn this on or anything, or am I good?
No, you're good.
Okay. And I live at 352 Spur 100, right across from the new water reuse pond. And I'm sure that all of you are very familiar with me at this point, because as of about 7/24, I've been sending each one of you a email. Mark, E.A. Hoppe, Bill Blackburn, Stuart Bering, and Tom Mosier concerning the bug problem at our house. It has been overwhelming. I think at this point that it's probably not healthy for any of us. We can't sit on our back porch. We can't enjoy our yards anymore at this point. It was never been that way before. I have gave them many suggestions on things that they can do, and I know that they have been working on it. But it was my understanding that through the biologist that this would only last for 3 weeks. Well, it started on 7/24. We're past 7/24, and it was going on before 7/24, before any of us neighbors even called, because we thought maybe it was just something going on with summer. So it probably started about the week of 7/1. I'm not sure when you started filling the pond, but I would like to request a meeting between myself and maybe Tom Mosier, the city manager, and whoever's in charge of this pond concerning some environmental issues that I have, issues concerning how we're going to move forward with other issues, who's in charge of it at EPA, and who's is Stuart Bering up to code with everything that he needs to do, because obviously he didn't know. And if you would have done any study on any one of these ponds, everyone that's put a pond in had a midge-fly problem. There's not one of them that has gone in that has not had a midge-fly problem. So that should have been addressed before the pond went in to begin with. Not only that, but Freeze and Hahn, when they, and I probably said that wrong, the contractors were supposed to talk to each one of us on Spur 100 concerning any environmental issues, flooding problems with the pond. They have never done that to this day. They have never come to us. They have never spoken to any of us. They, all of the equipment went in my front yard, every bit of it, and every piece of that equipment that is used to pump out the flood water when it starts to go over that dam that is also pointed at my house is in a floodplain. They have not had a flood study done on that as far as I know. And I know that at one time, city council or maybe the county commissioners met, and there was a flood study done in that area. And it was brought to my attention that the only people that that flood study did not cover were us people sitting in front of that pond. Now, I don't think that was appropriate. I don't think it should have been done that way. I think that we should have been included. I have a pond behind my house, so that pond is going, that river is going to overflow when that one overflows. And so there has been many things that have not been addressed with the pond with us people on Spur 100. I don't know what chemicals are going in there. I read many things about this pond and seepage and how chemicals, I've read about the cattle. My neighbor's cattle are sick at this time, and they get in the cattle's nose and they cause a problem, and her cattle are sick right now. And she could not make it here tonight, but she plans to come as well. So I'm not sure going forward how I should address this with you, to request a meeting with the city, Tom Mosier, and how we should go forward. So how should we do that?
I think coming was the first step. And a lot of those questions I don't have answers to, so obviously I would have to defer to the city manager and the experts, and would love to know some of those answers myself. Mr. City Manager, you have anything you want to add, or?
Remember, we can't discuss items under this because it's not posted as an agenda item.
Right.
There's a lot of misinformation here, quite frankly.
Miss him?
Okay, wait, before we get
okay.
into an
The
interaction,
meeting is
though,
what I
can
think
we just take her name and number and,
Yeah.
and ask to set up the meeting that she's
Yeah,
asking
yeah.
for? Is that something we can
We
do?
have been meeting with her on multiple occasions, and we'd be glad to do that again.
Okay, that's pretty much what we need to address.
Then I'm going to say, city manager will take the lead on that in a meeting and determine who needs to be involved. But I'm sorry you've dealt with this as long as you have, and I understand we've got to find a resolution to it.
And it's my understanding too that the EPA said that it couldn't be built within a quarter of a mile of a residential area. Now, I don't know if we are considered county on that side and they're considered city, but I read that, and I mean, I've just been doing lots and lots of study trying to educate myself on this before I look and trying to find out how I can, come to a resolution as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Dale Trees.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Dale Trees, 115 Plaza Drive. Also, I'm the chairperson for the City of Kerrville, the Kerrville Recovery Community Coalition. Heads up that September is National Recovery Month, and our coalition has been making preparations to have a number of events during this time. At my last showing here at this podium, I mentioned toward the end of my annual report for the coalition that we were in the process of putting together a training with the national organization called Facing Addiction, and that is the Communities Project, and the City of Kerrville has been selected out of 25 communities across the United States to participate in this year with this community project. We feel very honored and blessed that we've had this opportunity. Once we began the action phase of all of this, it took place very quickly, and I'm not sure that our I apologize that our communication from us to you has broken down somewhat. We weren't certain of who was going to get the word out, so that's why I'm here tonight. We are having our first training, which is this Thursday, and August 30th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the First United Methodist Church at 321 Thompson Drive. And this training is to organize our efforts to affect change, progress, and initiatives, and we can, this is part of a solution that is an integral part of progressing our community forward in an environment that empowers, strengthens, educates, and facilitates personal as well as systematic growth for the betterment of the community as a whole, which fits nicely with the original and still existing purpose of the Recovery Community Coalition, which states that the coalition is to enhance the opportunities for the recovery community to become fully integrated into the fabric of Kerrville, and the coalition shall work toward considering and identifying strategies and techniques for the reducing barriers for the recovery community to be fully integrated into the local community, as well as identify and advocate for goals and ideas for enhancing positive relationships by and amongst the recovery community. Again, we are one of I think there were originally 25 communities targeted across the United States that had to do application processes. We were fast-tracked into this process this year because of resources that we have in our connection networks, and is already here. We do have a Facebook presence now. It's the Kerrville Recovery Community Coalition on Facebook. In fact, we have part of that City of Kerrville star that's right above the mayor is the photo on that Facebook. It also has been updated with a number of other items that will be taking place during the month of September, which again is Recovery Month, and that's a national. That's all I have for tonight.
Okay, I've got one question for you. On the 30th, Thursday, I've got things till 11. Can I come in for the last couple of hours?
Absolutely. If you have availability in your schedule to come for a little period early in the morning, or at the beginning, or in the evening, or in the afternoon, it's 9 to 1.
Yeah.
So anywhere in that period of time, feel free. Yes, please come.
And where is it at the church? Any particular, one of those rooms, I'm sure?
It's in one of the is it the education
I'll find
rooms?
it.
Or yeah, we'll post some signs so when you come in, it'll be easier to find us.
Okay, at First Methodist.
And we will have some refreshments and such. So if y'all can let us know on that Facebook site, also has an Evite to get an RSVP.
Okay, good.
Thanks,
Dale. Okay. I think we have a presentation to a staff member.
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask our deputy city manager to come on up, who doesn't like the limelight or the attention, but we're going to do it anyway. So a while back, I had mentioned that EA had just received his credentialing with the International City County Management Association. And it's a pretty prestigious honor. Very few managers across the U.S. have achieved this. And it requires, like many of you, professional certifications, ongoing continuing education, so many hours and so forth. And so he has done that, and so I just want to present him with this certificate and recognize him for his efforts. So it says, for receiving the Credentialed Manager designation from the International City County Management Association, which has about 9,000 members worldwide. In order to receive the prestigious ICMA credential, a member must have significant experience as a senior management executive in local government, have earned a degree, and demonstrated a commitment to high standards of integrity and to lifelong learning and professional development. And just a few other things about EA. He started in Richardson, worked there several years, worked his way up, and then became city manager at Baroody for 4 years. Okay, then came to work for us. He's also got a master's degree in public administration. Thank you. And he is a recipient of the prestigious Ridley Scholar Program presented to an individual each year by the Texas City Management Association. So we're very fortunate to have you here on board, EA, and we just want to take this time to recognize you. Thank
All right. I have been asked to move 8A, another presentation recognition regarding the annual river cleanup to this point. And so at this time,
No, they're going to have to wait till the end.
Thank you very much. Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Thank you so much for the invitation to speak with you today about UGRA's annual river cleanup. I just put together a couple of slides to show a little bit of what the event was about. We had it on July 28th, so just about a month ago, and we had 505 volunteers participate in the river cleanup. A lot of them signed up early, and then they were dispatched to their cleanup locations. You know, some were in the weeds, some were in canoes. Everyone was hot. It was very, very hot July this year. And all told, they brought in about 10,000 pounds of trash from, you know, even somebody in a little convertible showed up with their tiny trunk and pulling their trash bags out. And then we had a lot of vehicles like these just piled high from different locations throughout Kerr County. So we had appliances, we had fencing, we had, you know, furniture, and your regular household trash, as well as beverage containers and things like that. We had another group of volunteers that helped at Flat Rock Park at the boat ramp to unload all of those vehicles. So the pile ended up being about 10,480 pounds of garbage. The city of Kerrville primarily hauled that away for us. Also, Garrett Services and Kerrville and Republic Services hauled away a portion of that as well. And Kerrville Recycling took about 1,800 pounds of scrap metal too. So after the volunteers were, you know, came back with their garbage, they're all hot and sweaty and tired out, we treated them to free T-shirts. They had a snack. They got an entry into the free raffle. We invited people to visit the ecological fairs that we have set up at the event, which just try to share some information about ecology of the hill country and of the Guadalupe River as well. And then everyone was invited to gather for our raffle. It's just one of the other ways that we like to thank those volunteers for participating in the event as well. Some people always like to hear about the biggest and most unusual items found. So we had about a 10-inch diameter piece of PVC that was 20 feet long that this gentleman's group brought in. And one of the unusual items found was a bag. It was like a full wardrobe of clothes, but the one that really caught my eye was this large float brought in by some Boy Scouts on a canoe from Flat Rock Park near Public Works guys, and I were just kind of standing around like, what is that thing, and how did it end up in Flat Rock Lake? But I think it must have just been part of a dock. I'm not really sure, in such a small body of water to have such a large float, but that was pretty interesting. So we had about 28 sponsors altogether that contributed to the success of the river cleanup, either through donation of goods or services or just cash donations to help us to purchase all of those goodies for the event. So this is the 11th year that we've partnered with the city of Kerrville on the river cleanup, and you know, once again, just had excellent support from your staff. It is such an enormous help to me that I can send a quick email or make a phone call, and it's just, yes, anything you need, we will help. And I think Stuart Barron even said this year, like, yeah, we already got on the calendar. We know we plan for this every year. Specifically, I'd like to thank Stuart Barron and Joel Miners for lending the resources of their teams. From the streets team, we had Brandon Kelly with Isaac Rodriguez and Randy Listenby and Philip Garcia that picked up trash from the satellite locations on the morning of the cleanup, and also came to Flat Rock to haul away that big pile as well. And the city of Kerrville paid for the dump fees too to dispose of those. So overall, the event went very smooth. I think it was probably the you know, no hiccups or anything. It was one of the smoothest events that we'd had this year. We're just really thankful to be able to offer this event to the community, and we definitely could not do it without the city of Kerrville. So thank you very much.
A couple of questions.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. That sounds great. One, you'll do it again when?
We do it the fourth Saturday in July, so it'll be,
okay.
I think it's
right.
July 27th, 2019.
Given the tonnage,
Yes.
do we need to work with UGRA, city and UGRA, at ways to prevent that trash ending up in the river?
Well, we're definitely, you know, happy to have those discussions too. You know, we do work other times of year as well to try to reduce the amount of trash. UGRA has a routine crossings cleanup that we have a contractor that visits some of the crossings throughout Kerr County and removes trash from them on a weekly basis in the summer and then monthly in the off summer. And that usually brings in about 30,000 pounds of trash a year, unfortunately. And we started last summer with hiring off-duty peace officers to patrol some of the worst crossings that were known for having the most trash left behind after recreators had left. And so they, you know, visit those areas and pass out garbage bags and just try to have a presence to discourage the dumping. But, you know, obviously we can always do more, so we're open to working on other solutions too.
How far up did you go?
We try to get volunteers to go all the way, you know, up in Hunt on the North Fork and South Fork. I think, this year we only had out to Hunt Crossing, and we had some places on Johnson Creek. And then we had volunteers in Comfort, too, and in Center Point.
Thanks for a
That's
good
amazing.
job.
All right, great
Thank
event.
you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we move to the consent agenda. 4B and 4C. What is your pleasure in regard to that?
4A as well, Mayor.
I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. 4A and then 4B, 4C. Should have known that. Okay.
And I actually have to pull the minutes off because I caught something late, sorry, but I need to pull 4A off.
All right, okay. Pull 4A off, then we're ready to vote on 4B and 4C. If you're in favor of the adoption of those, if you'd indicate, please.
I
Is there a
move
motion?
that,
Do you need a motion for?
Yeah,
No, we didn't
thank you.
I move that we accept 4B and 4C in the consent agenda as presented.
Yeah.
And we got a second?
We don't have the buttons. Does
I don't
anybody have the motion buttons?
No, I don't
Okay.
either.
Well, we can do it manually, but is there a way to get them on here at some point? But
Maybe.
anyways, so we
Okay.
motioned.
Let's.
Somebody seconded?
Yeah,
I'll second it.
okay.
Okay.
All right. All in favor, let it be known by the raised hand. Okay, good. Okay, let's go back to 4A in the minutes.
Okay. All right. All right. So a couple of places, I guess there are additions or one sort of a correction. So item 8A, it's page 4 of our minutes, and the current minutes listed the motion that I made, and it said, Mr. Baroody moved that council formally authorize city manager to begin to negotiate a contract amendment, blah, 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 blah. It needs to be corrected. If it's going to put the motion in, the correct motion, and I marked it down, it was the 50-minute, 30-second mark of the meeting video, if you got to verify it. But Mr. Baroody moved that, I put in quotes here, because council formally authorized the city manager to begin, I guess you'd say, continue negotiations to amend the interlocal agreement with the goal of ensuring the relevance and validity of current city animal services issues as outlined in the city charter, chapter 18, to make sure those are upheld. So I would like that to replace the part that it actually
So
says.
do we have the ability to read that?
It's in the minutes, in the packet.
Okay, this
It's-
isn't your new, it's in, I have it, but I don't see that for some reason. I'm looking at,
8A. It's page 4 of the minutes themselves. I don't know if
okay.
that. Huh?
Are you sure it's not page 3,
8A.
maybe?
No.
It's 8A.
In the minutes. Yeah. Are
Okay.
you there?
I'm there. Is that
Okay.
second paragraph down, or?
Yes.
Okay.
And it says Mr. Baroody moved that,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's essentially changing it. He didn't say city manager to begin to negotiate. It actually said to begin, I guess you'd say continue negotiations. That's the clarification, because that's what I said. And so that's one change. The other one is in 8C in the minutes. It's page 5, so the next page over. And it's actually the 1 hour, 6 minute, and 20-second mark of the meeting video. But it says, the current minutes say, council also discussed the following. Were any funds allocated for taking over property? Mr. Hoppe noted there had been no discussions regarding any condemnation. That's all correct and valid, and that's all great. But the question was asked about allocating takeover property, and so after Mr. Hoppe said that, I added in here, Mr. Baroody noted, in fact, discussion had occurred at the July EIC meeting when he, Mr. Baroody, relayed the following. The comment was made by one of the EIC members. I believe he said it's his feeling that if you've got some rundown housing that's residing on infrastructure, the city might want to create a program to take that over. And so my feeling is that if we're going to put that there, Mr. Hoppe noted there had been no discussions, we ought to add the clarification that there actually had been, not by staff, but anyways, that was in the minutes. So the two corrections are, as I just said, I can email them to Cheryl. I have them printed. The email makes it so you could copy and paste if that's what you wanted to do. So
instead of there had been no discussions, you want to say there had been?
no, he said, leave what he said in there and add what I said after it, because at the meeting I said the things I just read off. So they were actually spoken words at the meeting following his statement. So I'm just asking to have those put into the minutes as well.
Okay.
So I would make a motion to pass the minutes with these two amendments, if that's.
Okay, go back to where these two things occurred in the meeting, at what point?
The first one was 50, the 50-minute, 30-second mark.
Okay,
And the second one was at the 1 hour, Mr. Hoppe's, or the question itself was the 1 hour, 6 minute, and 20-second mark. And just after that.
okay.
I guess before I would vote to approve the minutes, I would just like to see that. I mean,
That's fair enough. That's why I gave the time of the video. I mean, I'm not asking her to put words that weren't in there. Normally,
Right.
she
I
would
know,
go
I just-
verify.
I didn't write it down exactly how you said it.
Well,
so
how
I
about
don't
if I
know.
make this motion? I make the motion this way. I would move that we approve the minutes with the added amendments upon Ms. Cheryl verifying that those words were actually spoken.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
That's a
Mr. Mayor, probably the best thing to do is table this item.
That's fair
to the
enough,
next
too.
meeting and have it come back so you can all see it in writing, so everybody understands what's in there. Because
Okay.
we don't want to put staff in a position of interpreting and then
The burden would be
getting
on
it
her,
wrong. And
yeah.
Yeah,
No
okay.
motion, but-
All right, is there a motion to table this item?
I'll make a motion to table it till the next meeting.
Okay,
I'll second that.
all right.
What's your second one?
Oh, well,
I have one all of a sudden.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to table these minutes.
Can I slightly modify it? We're tabling it to bring back the minutes with these amendments for people to view.
Yeah,
Basically.
okay, okay. Okay, all in favor, let it be known by the upraised hands.
Oh,
We can,
We're gonna get
I
to
think
vote?
we can vote.
I think we
We've
can
got
vote.
it.
You
now.
got it?
Yeah. we can vote.
Okay, there we are. All right, and it passes 5-0. Okay. We're at the end of the consent agenda. At 6:32, we move into public hearing regarding the proposed budget. And let me say this. After the presentation and citizens speak, then council can come in with questions or comments after the citizens have spoken.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to start with going through a brief presentation on the budget. This should be pretty familiar to you at this point. We're going to go through the calendar again. So we started with budget workshops in June and continued those in July. At the meeting on August 14th, Mr. McDaniel gave the official presentation of the proposed budget. That leads us to this meeting on the 28th. So we are now having a public hearing, and it will be followed by the first reading of the budget ordinance and tax ordinance, followed up with a second reading on the September 11th meeting. These slides that you're seeing, you've seen before, so they should be pretty familiar to you. They reference pages in your proposed budget book, which is also available online for anyone that wants to view that, and also at the library and in the city secretary's office as well. So our budget moves forward some of the major initiatives in the Kerrville 2050 plan. You can see those listed here. This is just a sampling of some of the things that we will be working on. And yeah, 14 different items here, so I won't go through all of them. To give you an idea of the size of the budget, we have proposed expenditures of $75.1 million. And the majority of those expenditures are in the general fund, our main operating fund, the water and sewer fund, and the water and sewer capital projects fund. So those three funds together make up 79% of that spending.
Excuse me, I don't want to interrupt too many, but here we've got development services listed, pulled out, and general fund listed. Are those a combined number really, or no? Like, is the development services part of the general fund dollars there?
No, it's not. It's separate.
Okay.
Per our financial policy, the general fund and the water and sewer fund have balanced budgets, and they meet our reserve policy requirements. And one thing to note, this graph here does not include EIC, which is a component unit, and that EIC budget has already been passed, and it is part of the proposed budget book. I'm going to go over just a few highlights on the general fund side. So the general fund is our largest fund. It is the budget is balanced there with $27.2 million in revenues and expenditures. Our property tax rate remains unchanged at 55.14 cents per $100 of assessed value. And it's important to note that this is lower than our effective tax rate of 55.38. We are projecting an ending reserve balance of 26.2% at the end of fiscal year 19. And our general fund budget includes salary and pay plan adjustments for public safety to address compression and market competitive issues that we've spoken about before. It includes 6 new positions. That's 2 at the Kerrville Sports Complex, 1 at Kerrville Shriner Park, 1 in engineering, 1 project manager position, and 1 tourism and events coordinator position. And then, like Mr. Baroody just mentioned, development services is split out as a separate fund. So we want to really increase the transparency and focus on improvements that we're making in our development services area. So we've broken that out as a separate fund to facilitate that. On the water and sewer side, so water and sewer is our second largest fund, and we have a balanced budget there with $12.5 million in revenues and expenditures. We are proposing some rate increases, a 4% rate increase on volumetric water and 2% on sewer. So that doesn't impact the base rate, it just impacts like the actual number of gallons that you use, and we'll get into that a little bit more in the next slides. It does include a full year of estimated revenue from the expanded reuse customer base, and it also includes new debt service for debt on the Legion lift station loan that we are anticipating receiving from the Texas Water Development Board in fiscal year 19. And there is 1 new position on the water and sewer side, and that is a chief operator position in the water distribution department. As I said before, we wanted to give you a little bit more information on the water and sewer rates. So this is a slide that you've seen before, and this compares the city of Kerrville's rates to other comparison cities in our area. You can see over towards the right, the bars with the orange gold kind of line around them are the city of Kerrville rates. So the one with the orange bar farthest to the right is where we currently are. Right next to it shows where we're proposing to go in fiscal year 19. And then we're also looking at small rate increases in fiscal year 20 and 21 as well. You can see that in comparison to these surrounding cities, even with rate increases through 2021, we're still kind of middle of the pack, and that would be assuming that these other cities don't increase their rates at all. Most cities, 6 of the 10 comparison cities, did have rate increases in fiscal year 18. And several of them have already proposed rate increases for fiscal year 19. When we talk about these rate increases, it's important to note what that means to the average consumer. So the average residential customer uses about 5,800 gallons of water each month. With these rate increases, that would be an increase of $1.31 each month on the average residential bill. Moving on to a little bit of information about our water and sewer operating expenses. So these are expenses since 2012 on operational items like personnel, services, maintenance, supplies, those kinds of things. And you can see that from 2012 to 2019, our operating expenditures have increased 32.9%. However, we haven't had rate increases, volumetric rate increases over this time. The last water volumetric rate increase that we had was in October of 2012. And it was a 6 to 15% increase. It was a flat 40-cent increase on each tier of water rate usage. The last volumetric sewer rate increase was in October 2011, and that was an 18% increase at that time. So you can see that we're proposing much less than that this year, and it's been a while, but our operating expenses do continue to increase each year. I'm going to hit just a few highlights on water and sewer capital projects. These are ones that you should be familiar with. So we have two big projects going on in fiscal year 19. The first is the Legion Lift Station expansion. Looks like about a $9.85 million project, and y'all have approved putting in an application to the Texas Water Development Board for a loan for that project. EIC is also contributing $2 million towards that project, and that's to expand capacity on the east side of town. And then we also have the TTHM mitigation project, and that's something that's required by TCEQ to reduce the level of TTHMs in our water system. And we're looking at a filtration system that would be about $4.1 million. We discussed the Legion Lift Station funding. The Texas Water Development Board, we're also asking for a loan from them for the TTHM mitigation project. And then we also have some smaller projects that include rehabilitating our oxidation ditch at the water reclamation plant, rehabilitating water production's clarifier. We're looking at a potential new well, and some master plan updates, long-range water plans. So quite a bit going on there. On the general fund side, we're looking at continuing some capital projects in fiscal year 19 that we've already started a little bit. So the tennis center renovations, $1.5 million, and that's been funded by EIC. And then we're also going to be working on the downtown and garage streetscape improvements that we've discussed previously. And there's a list of some other smaller projects there as well on the general fund side. One thing that I wanted to note, this is a new slide that you haven't seen before. In the proposed budget book, and in our final budget book as well, we always put our policies in there. We do have a few changes to some policies. I wanted to highlight those changes because you will be approving policy changes as part of this budget approval process. We have the investment policy included. We just have a few minor changes there. We have an investment advisor. They have an authorized broker list that they update each year, so they've made a few changes to the brokers there. We have a title change for one of our investment officers, and we have a few clarifications that our investment advisor has given us, things specifying market versus book value on some collateral calculations, things like that. The purchasing policy is also included in the proposed budget book. And we have some additional clarification in our purchasing policy regarding the city manager entering into public funds agreements as well as purchases of goods and services for up to $50,000. Items that are over $50,000 will come back to council for your approval. There's also a portion of our purchasing policy that talks about change orders for capital projects, and the Texas Local Government Code specifies that change orders up to 25% can be done, but we've added a clause in there that specifies if that 25% is over $50,000, then those will come back to council. We have added a real estate policy to the budget book. This is something that we've always had but was not previously included in the budget book. So we've added the real estate policy. And we've made a few changes in that real estate policy. The primary one is that policy had not been updated in many years, and it had a $25,000 purchasing threshold there. We've made that consistent with the purchasing policy at up to $50,000. And there's a few minor things like changing the city clerk title to city secretary and just some things like that to clean up and be consistent with the proper titles. We include the travel policy. We have a clarification in there regarding mileage for employees that receive a vehicle allowance. If they are traveling a long distance, even though they receive a vehicle allowance, they would be eligible to turn in some mileage for long distance travels. And then finally, there's the fee schedule, and the fee schedule shows you changes in yellow. You can see the current year rate and the proposed rate for fiscal year 19. And we will also be bringing a fee schedule resolution to you on September 11th, but the fee schedule is part of the budget book as well. We have a couple other policies included, the financial management policy and the vehicle and equipment replacement policy, but there were no changes to those, but they are included. So getting back to the calendar, we will have the public hearing, and then following the public hearing will be the first reading of the budget ordinance and tax ordinance. And then we'll be back again on September 11th with the second reading of both of those ordinances.
Okay, thank you. We have citizens who have signed the speaker's form and want to speak to this.
Or actually anybody that didn't sign a form. There's a public hearing. You can
Yeah,
speak if you
yeah.
wish.
Yeah, that's correct. Anybody who wants to speak to this. Okay, if not, council?
You need to close the public hearing.
Yeah. The public hearing is closed at 6:47.
I have a few questions, Mayor.
Okay.
Just one I noticed on that graph on the sewer and water rates. Why are our sewer rates higher than our water rates? Seems like most of the other cities are pretty close to even, if not the water's higher.
Sure. Great question. Something I noticed when I got here too, because I haven't seen that elsewhere. I think it has a lot to do with our terrain and how expensive it is to move sewer around the city to our plant to be treated. And so that's the biggest driver in the capital investments that have been made over time for sewer. So the electricity, the chemicals, the treatment, that sort of thing.
Okay. And the other question I have is, as far as the reuse pond debt, the debt service this year will be around $800,000, and the revenue will be around $150,000. So that leaves around $660,000. Are we doing anything to actively try to create more revenue, or is there something we can do?
We've looked long range, especially as part of our long range water planning, to look at that very issue, because as you know, that was more of a water supply, as much a water supply issue as it was for just irrigation of reuse water as it is today. So you'll have that coming to you before the end of the year, the whole plan, and to see how that fits in. But something I also note too is I was talking to city manager of Fredericksburg on Friday, and they're going up on their water and sewer rates 25%. And by the time they do that, they're going to be above what we project to be by 2021. So we do have very competitive rates when you look at our peer cities.
Okay, I guess just to add to that, I just went to Austin to this concert series called Blues on the Green at Zilker Park, and I believe they do use a lot of reuse water in their parks. So maybe that's something we could also look into in the future to maybe counter that debt.
Yeah.
Because I know that K-Pub loan's going to come up, and maybe it's the time to ask that question. Do we have a plan for that when that adds $1 million to the debt service?
Yes. So the 10-year plan that we have with regard to financing of the 10-year plan and operations, we brought that back to y'all when we were doing the Legion lift station debt issuance to show you how that would all layer in. And so with the adjustment that we made to that loan, plus the refunding or refinancing that we did of our existing debt, we'll still be well within our capacity.
Okay.
And page 123 of your budget book shows the debt service and have it modeled out when the payment
All right. We move to 6A, ordinances first reading.
No. I put in a request to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Because everybody doesn't like when I ask the questions, so what I'm going to do here is ask the questions, and I'll vote to move forward with the first reading, but I'd like to see the answers, before our second reading type of thing. So I'll just read the questions, and I'll give them to Cheryl, and I'll email them to Mark. But basically, so it was stated in a presentation last meeting, we did it again. Well, no, it was last meeting. That our volumetric rates are conservation rates, where per gallon rate increases as the volume of use increases. So why do we use the opposite approach within our reuse water pricing, where the per gallon rate is actually lower for the highest volume users? So that's the first question. We were told that one justification for the increase of volumetric water rates is to offset the increase in maintenance and operation costs, which have increased by over $2 million, I guess, since our last rate increase. But because of our water department has been running a surplus over the same time period, is it not accurate to say that the increased costs of maintenance and operations have been sufficiently covered by the unchanged rates? Essentially, isn't our revenue increasing by sort of equal amounts? It has been said that the Legion Lift Station upgrade project is a driving force for the increased water rates. This is not completely accurate, because if we were not doing the Legion project right now, we still would have had to raise the water rates in order to cover the debt service of the reuse water delivery system, since that service is being subsidized through a gift of service, correct? So kind of in reference to what Mr. Vogel was talking about. And we did that comparison of the Kerrville water bills to other cities' water bills in an effort to explain why we should not feel bad about raising our rates. Comparing our water bills is great, but it kind of misses the point, because it does not take into account water volume usage trends that other cities may or may not differ from us on. So is there a way to get the actual water rates based and volumetric in the same sort of comparable cities? And as far as I don't know if she talked about tonight, but we got 2 new positions in the sports complex. And we were told last meeting that it was due to two main factors. The director, the sports complex director, currently having to mow fields, and non-sports complex parks employees being pulled off their regular duties to assist at the sports complex. So it kind of leads into a couple of questions, which is, what's the how many hours, man hours, whatever, were actually spent by non-sports complex employees on the sports complex? So what type of real overlap we got, and what services normally provided by these pull-away employees went undone because of their work on the sports complex? So kind of how many man hours are we missing when we do that? And then, since DBAT manages the operations on the baseball side, and the city is apparently not actively pursuing soccer tournaments directly, what are the duties of the sports complex director that he'll be doing if he's not actually doing hands-on maintenance of the fields? And so we're also adding a Shriner Park employee, and so since the sports complex, Shriner Park, and parks maintenance are all under the same real tent, does it even make sense to silo the parks workforce like that, where we're being rigid with it? Would it be not maybe more efficient if they're all seen as parks department, and kind of resource that? Personnel across the board is being projected as a 3% average merit increase, which I don't have a problem with. However, can we prevent using contingency funds to support merit increases of any personnel, which apparently occurred in FY18, because it kind of skews the average increase? And we have been told that part of the justification for the 6 new employees, part of it, not all of it, of the new positions in the overall budget is that we are essentially building back up to levels of, I guess it was FY 2010 maybe, or 2011, prior to the economic downturn that kind of caused us to freeze and short or cut. We're using that as this type of justification for budget increases seems a little bit too arbitrary. I'd rather see the details of the service level increases that are requiring these additional positions. And I'm still a little bit concerned, well, I'm a lot of bit concerned actually, by the fact that our general fund expenses are increasing by almost $2 million if you put the development services back in to compare apples to apples, by almost $2 million, while our property tax revenue is actually going to go down. I'd like to see a more detailed picture of how that is going to be a sustainable model moving forward, because it appears we're growing government service levels without a sustainable plan for revenue growth. Those are basically the questions that some are from me, but some are from the public, so that's why I'm doing it this way. So.
Okay, so before we come back on the budget, then staff will come back with responses to these.
Right, I'll email the questions right now, and correct, that's what it is.
Okay. Okay, any other comments before we move to the vote on the ordinance's first reading? Okay, all in favor of 6A, ordinance's first reading?
You need to read the caption for both ordinances.
I'll do it.
Starting with 6A.
Yeah, okay. First reading of ordinance 2018-17, adopting the annual budget for the city of Kerrville, Texas, fiscal year 2019, providing appropriations for each city department and fund, containing a cumulative clause and containing a savings and severability clause. And then 6B is first reading of ordinance 2018-18, levying an ad valorem tax for the use and support of the municipal government of the city of Kerrville, Texas for fiscal year 2019, apportioning the levy for specific purposes and providing when taxes shall become due and when same shall become delinquent if not paid. All right. We're ready to vote on that.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion.
Sorry, yeah,
If
thank you.
I
Need something else.
Well,
Hold on.
Councilmember Sigerman, so we do need separate motions for each
Okay.
because we need a record vote for the budget
for
ordinance.
6A.
All right.
and then
Yes.
for
Okay.
6B.
Do we have a motion on 6A?
I'll make a motion that we approve the first reading of ordinance 2018-17, 6A, adopting the annual budget for the city of Kerrville, Texas, fiscal year 2019.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Okay, we've got a motion second. Then
You have to ask us, right?
shall we proceed
Yes,
to that vote?
I need to get.
Yes. Do I hit it on here too?
Yes.
All right,
Mayor,
yeah,
how do you vote?
there you go.
I need you to
I don't
tell
think
me.
we've ever done this before.
Yeah. It's a record vote, so I need you to tell me.
Oh, yes, my vote is yes.
Mrs. Eigner?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. It's 5-0.
Okay. All right, and that motion passes. And now we are ready for a motion on 6B, the ad valorem tax, first reading of that ordinance. Do we have a motion? Okay, all right.
I make a motion that we approve 6B, item 6B, which is the first reading of the ordinance 2018-18, levying an ad valorem tax for the use and support of the municipal government for the city of Kerrville, Texas, for the fiscal year 2019.
All right. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Are we ready to vote on 6B? All right.
This one's not a record vote?
It's not.
It's not a record vote. Now, why was the last one a record vote and this one wasn't?
Because it's the first.
State law.
State law.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's just the question.
That's a good
That's
answer.
Okay.
That's all you have to
Votes are all
say.
in.
Answered a lot of questions. All right, okay. Okay, 7A, consideration and possible action, Kerrville Sports Complex improvement projects. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you again tonight are the recommendations of staff and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board for the remaining balance of funds for the project at the sports complex. You've seen these recommendations a couple of times indicated in the timeline in your agenda packet. At the last tour of the complex on August 1st, the consensus was for the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board to meet again to revisit the list. They have done so and recommend these projects. Tonight, a representative is here, John Harrison, to speak to you and to address any questions that you have on behalf of the board. Turn it over to John.
I'm John Harrison, a 2911 Dry Hollow, Kerrville resident, and a proud member of the advisory board of the Parks Board. Your advisory board has been very busy for the last year. It actually works us pretty hard. I've learned a lot about the city and been involved in a lot of the activities in the park. One thing we've been very active in, though, to talk about tonight is we've reviewed this list of projects a couple of times and extensively. And we questioned her in this room and Shane about why these projects and the priorities. And we voted both times to support very strongly the priority list. And we would encourage you tonight to support the staff and support the Parks Department in the city of Kerrville. Let me tell you, the Mark is in the paper this week talking about the arts capital, Kerrville, or being the arts capital of the Hill Country. But I can tell you, I think it's probably, as well said, that it's the parks capital of the Hill Country. You've got some outstanding parks, and number one among them is the sports complex that you guys provided for the city. So thank you very much. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about any of the projects.
I want to thank you and the board and what you've done. I know that we talked about this in previous council meeting, and we went out to the sports complex, staff and members of the council and members of the board, and and then I know you from there you went back and looked again. Okay, what do we need to do, and have come up with these priorities, and so thank you. Thank you.
And
Any
John,
questions?
I would like to also thank you and the board and Ashley and her staff. You guys, you do a super job, and I think we need to move ahead with approval of this.
Thank you.
I have a few questions for either you or Ashley. It's about some of the items. On the scoreboards, how many scoreboards would that supply, the 90,000?
That would supply the 11.
All of
All of
fields,
them.
okay. And is that what y'all are wanting to do, or y'all wanting maybe one per pod, or just, is that something that y'all discussed? Y'all wanted all 11 fields to have scoreboards?
That would be the idea.
Okay. And,
Well, to clarify, the Parks Department and the board were actually not wanting any of them, weren't they?
No, we do. It's just one of those nice to have. That's where it's ranked on the list. It's not what we ranked first was the maintenance items that we need to address.
okay.
Also, Ms. Sigerman.
I just wanted to add, I think your top priorities I would go for. I'd give them a thumbs up and a green light. But when we have some surplus money, I think the maintenance building extension is really important. I mean, I've had heavy equipment, and if they're not stored away in summer and
That's
fall.
part of what the board supported was items 5 through
When
10.
we have it, you just make sure we flag it for consideration. That's it.
Okay, all right.
Hold on.
I
He
still
wasn't done.
have one more question. I guess kind of two. I'll do the short one. The dedication plaque, that one we were out there was not real.
That was the mock-up.
Okay. Well, you fooled me. I think you would fool everybody.
Until you touch it, where the wind
yes.
blows.
As far as the playability of the fields, I think I kind of had a comment on that. It's mostly just a base pass, and I think y'all might have already addressed it. But if not, I think that does need to be put pretty high on the list. I helped do a lot of Little League games last year for this umpiring, and that was an issue where they would leave a lot of divots. So if you're bunting down each baseline, that would play with the ball, and kids also lost a couple steps that they're a little bit slower. So maybe if y'all haven't addressed it, I'd like to see that kind of bumped up on the scale.
Yes, and you're correct. It was an issue when the complex first opened, but we did address it, and it's
Okay.
It's been since repaired.
Okay.
I don't have a request. I don't have anything
Oh.
on my screen anymore, so.
Oh, okay.
But I got questions.
All right.
I don't know if an IT guy is still here, but my screen's blank. I don't know. I don't have anything anymore. But anyways, a couple of things. One, to what Mr. Harrison said, I think it's been mischaracterized that asking to review this list is somehow misrepresentation of. Is us not supporting staff or the Parks Board. It wasn't it at all. It actually is more about supporting the public who is actually giving us the information to ask the questions. So, thanks. So I did watch the Parks Board meeting from August 9th, and like I said, it's a little unfortunate that so-called council concerns continue to be mischaracterized as concerns of individuals, because they're not. They're actually, both from Mr. Volkel and I, it's us relaying concerns that we're receiving from the local youth groups that are actually using the complex. And it wasn't just, as far as the playability, it wasn't just something that was prior to the season. We've been making these comments all throughout the season and been told that, nah, don't worry about it, it's going to be okay. So anyways, that aside, I thought it was actually kind of interesting that the items that got approved or passed through, 1 through 9, versus the items that weren't, 10 through 16. 10 through 16 were actually requested by local users and user groups, and then one item that wasn't even on the list, I know the goalpost for the soccer isn't on the list at all. It's another local group. So it kind of sends a odd message, I think. It's one that I'm uncomfortable relaying to people, that the requests being made by the Parks Department and DBAT essentially are carrying more weight than the ones from the stakeholders, which we really only have one group of stakeholders right now, true financial stakeholders, which is the taxpayers. And so that was a little bit disturbing to me. But the last thing is, watching that meeting, I have no problem if everybody wants to choose the priorities however they want, but to put playability on there as a last item with the comment that you put in there, I think is a little bit unnecessary. I would suggest if nobody has a will to do it, just remove it, and if it's a playability problem going forward, we'll raise it again. So I would move that you remove item 16, I guess it is, from the list if there's no will for anybody to move forward with it currently, and there wasn't, listening to the Parks Board, and leave the rest of the list as it is. I would have liked to, like I said, seen the goalpost issue addressed, but regardless, so those are kind of my statements.
So you're making the motion then?
Yeah, I guess I would make the motion that we approve the list as presented. I guess they are giving us two separate lists, right? I think. So approve the top list, which is the projects to do, and modify the second list to remove item 16 altogether, and approve the rest of them as being the wish list.
All right. Motion is proceed with the full list, but take 16 off for now.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a second? I second that one. All right. Okay. Let's proceed then to a vote on that item. Sports complex improvement projects.
Votes are on
Okay. And is Ms. Sigerman the seconder on that one?
Yes, sir, she pushed her button.
Okay.
Well, I waited and I finally said, I guess I should, so.
All right, okay, okay. All right. And our vote is?
The votes were
It came in as 5-0.
Okay. 5-0 vote on that item. Let's move to 7B, and this has to do with board applications. And I'm wondering if one of the two involved want to make any comments in regard to that.
Sure, I'll start it. Pretty much my goal is to simplify the application forms. We've had trouble with, there's two forms, a generic form and an actual board form. And I worked with Cheryl and Councilwoman Segerman on this, trying to simplify that. And what I did, I just merged the two forms together, but I also made some additions to it as far as who the interviewer teams are, and then also trying to put in there, and this might not be the place to do it only, I'd like to have this maybe procedure rules or something where if we're releasing a public notice to accept applications no less than 30 days prior to the date of a regular board appointment, and no less than 14 days of an appointment in case of a vacancy, to give the public time to make their applications, fill out their applications.
Okay.
I think that's in the P&Z one.
It's in all of these, but I don't know
Okay.
if we need to add that somewhere
To the
else to make an actual procedure, or how we need to go about that.
Yeah.
So tonight, the action items is basically to modify the forms as
Okay.
far as the process. We had that workshop coming up this month on rules of procedure. If you wanted to add it there and have a discussion about it, we could do that.
Okay, I'd like to do that now.
Okay.
Did y'all get a chance to review the applications? Did y'all have any comments, any input?
I thought you did a good job. Thank you.
Yeah, with
Yeah,
removing a lot.
I'd spoken to you before. Basically, I'm good with the applications as they are. I was kind of hoping that at some point where we go would be like a web form. Is Charlie here? Okay. So currently we have essentially, it's still one form for every board, but I was thinking in terms of if we could get a web form that had a drop down, because all the questions are really the same on each one. And if we had a drop down, select the board, boom, and if they needed to print one out, they could select the board, print it out. It'd be nice to see what it takes to go that extra step.
And
That's a future agenda
okay,
item, I guess,
okay.
is what I'm saying.
I'm going to basically say the acting city secretary and the IT director can look at that, and we'll look at the feasibility.
Right, it's just
later.
a future,
Okay.
right?
All right.
Cheryl, do you have any comments? Did you receive all the applications? Does this look a little more simple?
Yes.
It's
Having one
simplified.
application is much simpler.
Okay.
And each
All right.
application has the way that you have it now has the requirements of each board on it.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
that's why there's a separate one for each board.
Okay.
Okay. Got a motion?
Somebody did.
It's been seconded too,
All right.
someone.
Judy seconded.
Judy. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Let's vote on that.
Votes are on it.
Did we abide by state law on that vote?
You did.
Good, good.
Believe me, they'll tell you if you don't.
I don't want to get the city in trouble.
I don't know.
So, all right. We have done 8A. 9A is financial update for the month ended July 31, 2018.
Hello again. I am going to give you a brief update on where we actually stand financially through the end of July. In your packets, you should have a financial summary and some graphs. And I'm going to hit just some highlights. On the general fund side, through the end of July, we've recorded revenues of $23.8 million and expenditures of $21.6 million. Our largest revenue source is property tax revenue, and we receive that primarily in December and January, so that's why at this point of the year we usually have a surplus like this. Sales tax revenue is one of our other large revenue sources, and we are continuing to see a good trend there. The month of July, sales tax revenue was up 8.26% compared to July of 2017. Looking at individual categories, we saw strong increases in retail sales, which is our largest category, so that's always positive, and also in manufacturing. We've also already received sales tax for the month of August, and it's up 5.49% compared to August of 2017. So we've had a lot of volatility in that revenue source, but these last few months have been favorable. We still expect to end the year lower in sales tax than what we had budgeted, but we have been able to make up some ground, so that's good. Property tax, our largest revenue source, is coming in slightly below budget, primarily because we had a $76,000 payment to James Avery per the terms of a 380 agreement that is being paid for the first time this year. But our prior year property tax payments have exceeded budget this year, so that's helping to make up some ground there. Our expenditures on the general fund side are lower than budget, primarily due to staffing vacancies, as we've discussed previously. On the water and sewer fund side, we've received revenues of $10.4 million compared to expenditures of $9.6 million. Of note is water revenue. So water revenue is continuing above the budget, and that's primarily due to the hot, dry conditions that we've had and not much rainfall. On the sewer side, we are actually coming in a little bit lower than budget. We've done some analysis there, and as you probably know, we can't meter sewer, so we do a sewer averaging based on water used during 3 winter months when people are not irrigating. And it looks like that we had a lot of water conservation efforts going on during that time, because our number of gallons used during those months was actually lower than the previous year. We did try to advertise sewer averaging this year, so I think some people were noticing and paying attention there. But anyway, we think that our water revenues will offset those sewer revenues that are coming in a little below budget. And we also have a $415,000 one-time transfer in a revenue on the water and sewer side that's related to the debt refinancing that we did in December of 17. So that's a unusual item. And those are the highlights for the month. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Coming around is the monthly CIP report, and I just want to highlight a few items. I'll take a moment to let it come around to you. So number 4 on your list, parking garage maintenance repairs. I just want to highlight that that's going to begin the 5th of September. So there's going to be a lot of shuffling of cars to make sure that we can work floor by floor to do the repairs, and we'll be coordinating with the folks that regularly use the garage, but I want to make you aware of that as well. Number 5, on the parking garage actual enhancements in the streetscape. This was something that has been through EIC, and the architecture has already been programmed, and so we're now going to be coming to you all on the 11th of September to get authorization to proceed to the EIC for a funding request. Number 10, the sports complex reuse pond. Several of you have asked about a fence around that pond. That fence now is up, or at least most of it is. They still are working in that area, so there may be a panel or two that's still down, but it's for all practical purposes, it's up.
Okay, can I ask a question on that one? It's not our job, and I'm not suggesting that we make it our job, but do we know, is Schreiner University going to put a fence around theirs? Because I would imagine theirs is more problematic as far as someone messing around.
they have other ideas about how they want to use that, so we can get back to you on that.
Okay.
Item number 15 is the TTHM as well as 16 effort. Just to highlight there that we hope to have a construction contract executed before the end of the calendar year, and we will have design completed in October for that, as well as the bench test and the third-party review of our approach. So I'm glad to see that we're making progress there and getting that under contract before the end of the calendar year. 18, the tax increment reinvestment zone for the downtown. We are going to be bringing that back to you in September for creation. So next month you'll have 2 readings on an ordinance to consider that. 19, the RFP for the public-private workforce housing. That RFP is actually coming in. The proposals are due tomorrow. So we'll know by the end of the day tomorrow how many we have and so forth. And so I'll try to give you an update in my Friday report. And then item 20, the long-range water supply plan. We had a great meeting with our consultants this week to look at where we are in the future on it's actually a 100-year plan, looking at projections for growth and looking at 3 different scenarios of growth, looking at all of our water sources. They were also in town to talk to stakeholders again, so they met with the commissioner and the headwaters again to talk to them some more about what their thoughts are, what they know, and so forth. So really fascinating, actually. We had a 2.5-hour staff meeting with the consultants looking at data, doing a real deep dive. So that'll be coming to you as a full report, so you'll get all that information in detail before the end of the year. And that's the highlights that I wanted to bring forth.
Okay, all right. We are going to deal with board appointments to 2 boards, Recovery Community Coalition, the Planning and Zoning Commission. But before we do that, I want to do one item for future agendas. I hope that in a council meeting before long, the staff can come to us to talk about affordable housing, possibilities, and next steps.
So we'll definitely put that on a future agenda, and just as an FYI, we are looking at, pursuant to Kerrville 2050, a housing plan, strategic housing plan. Many cities have those. We do not, and as you know, it's a critical issue here and elsewhere in Texas. But our situation's unique. Every city's is, and so we need our own plan. So we'll bring that forward.
I'd like to maybe add to that, maybe an update on the RFP at the Loop 534 property.
Actually, that'll be coming to you sooner than
Okay.
that. It'll be, we have it already scheduled for, I think, your next agenda.
Okay. All right. Then we will move into executive session.
Actually, Mayor, the Recovery Community Coalition, that needs to happen in open session.
Oh, it does.
Right, it's an advisory board. We can go into executive session if you all want to on the planning and zoning appointment.
So we don't have the option of going into executive session on the Recovery Coalition?
Right.
Okay. All right. And if that's the case, we'll move to 11A, appointments to the Recovery Community Coalition. And we are looking at 2 individuals.
You have 2 terms that are due to expire on December 31st. These positions were the ones that were formerly held by council members before they were no longer on council. I have 3 applications on file, and they all meet one of those listed qualifications for this board.
All right, okay. Let me ask you this. In that case, could someone make a motion in regard to 2 individuals?
You can do one at a time or both,
You
or
can do-
however you
Yeah,
want
we
to
can
do
do
it.
it however
It's
we.
either way. You can do them both at once or one at a time.
All right, okay. What's your pleasure? What's best?
I do one, you want to do one?
Huh?
Okay.
All right,
That's fine.
I'll make a motion to appoint Sabina Kunzel to the Recovery Community Coalition. She's been very active, been to a lot of meetings, and I think with her knowledge and experience as city staff, that would be very helpful and beneficial to the coalition.
All right, okay. Sabina Kunzel. That's a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, second. Then let's vote.
Votes are all in.
Okay, 4-1. Now, another motion, another recommendation.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we appoint Nikki, and pronounce her last name for me, Sarge, for appointment to the RCC committee. Again, she's been another very, very active participant in this effort in the community, and I think that she would make a good board member.
Okay, all right. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
I'm sorry. I'd like to ask Nikki, what was your involvement in the annual Recovery Awareness Project? That's pretty impressive, coming to Tybee. That seems pretty exciting.
We can ask her to come up and talk, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
If you'll come to the podium.
I appreciate you sending that to us. That's pretty exciting.
Yes, very exciting. Actually, I've been trying to get Chris Heron to come in for 3 years now, and he was booked up for 2 more years. And so they weaseled us into his schedule so that we can have him September 14th. And so, of course, we're having to raise, sponsorships all over town, but it's a community effort. But our main goal was that our young leaders are going to be walking out with good information that's effective and preventive, so that they're armed.
Tell them a little bit more of what he's going to be speaking on.
He's going to be speaking on addiction, mainly on addiction and addiction recovery. He's a former NBA Celtic, and he went through a really hard journey of addiction for 14 years. And when he came out to the other side, he has 3 children. He has a wife, and he's a huge advocate for recovery in general. But his main focus, what his gift was shown, was to talk with adolescents, to talk with students, and he talks to them real. He wants. His main focus was not only to inform them about addiction and prevention, but to inform them that it's okay to be who they are, and not just that they don't need any substance to make them who they are, that they're okay just how they are. And I mean, he's quick, he's fast, he's just amazing. I'm really, really, really excited to.
And he's going to be at Tybee, right?
He's going to be at Tybee, but we did get the green light to live stream it throughout the entire Hill Country for all the schools. And so we can also set up satellite locations for parents, for families, for anyone in the community to come and view. Because, I mean, let's utilize it. It's really effective. And then also all the students, there'll be 1,500 bags handed out with good, solid information about resources, not only in our area, but around the state, on both addiction and mental health. So it'll be a little bit of this, a little bit of that. We're getting it all together little by little. And we're very, very thankful that we had a lot of outside treatment centers, addiction treatment centers, who were more than willing to be sponsors. The adolescent treatment centers that are just some of the best in the country. And so it's going to be exciting. I'm really excited. And then also, sorry, one more thing. We're going to sort of honor Chris Aaron by we're having 1,500 students wear purple shirts. So they have been sponsored, or the shirts have been sponsored. So one of his big projects is the Purple Project Initiative, and it's about sober students. And so all the kids are going to have a purple shirt. So it's sort of like a little honor to him as well.
And one more plug for you. Are you doing that run thing again?
We're doing this instead. We're
okay.
Doing our focus on this one instead.
Okay.
And of course, if there is any proceeds that are gathered afterwards, it's going to go all towards youth prevention.
Thank you.
All right. Okay.
That's good. Thank you, Nikki.
You got a motion
Got a
second.
second.
Motion second. Okay. Let's vote. Okay. The vote is 4-1. And so we have our two new persons on the Recovery Community Coalition. So at this time, we will go into executive session.
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session for item 11B. What's the rule I'm using?
551074.
551074.
Yeah. Now, if you want to remain, you can. When we come back, all we will do is say what the decision is on P&Z. So,
Who's the second?
Did somebody second?
all right. Chief, you got a second?
Yes.
7:44, council is back in session from the executive session under 551074, dealing with appointments to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Do I hear a motion in regard to that?
I don't have the opportunity to press a button. Oh,
Oh.
yes, I do. Now I do.
There you go.
Okay. All right. Councilman Seigerman?
I would like to make a motion that we appoint Jim Brown to the Planning and Zoning Planning and Zoning Commission alternate position, which is due to expire in January of 19.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Eichner? Have a motion second. Then let's vote on that decision. And that's appointing Jim Brown as an alternate to P&Z.
Votes are all in.
Okay. All right. With nothing further, at 7:45, we're adjourned.